Ever feel like you are your worst enemy when it comes to making decisions? You are not alone. But here's the good news. Understanding the psychology behind your choices is the first step to breaking free from self-sabotage. Picture this. You are about to hit publish on a video you've worked on for weeks, but suddenly doubt creeps in. What if it's not good enough? So you don't post it. Sounds familiar? I've been there too. It's like our brains are working against us sometimes. But here's the thing. It's not just you, it's how our mind works. There is a whole science behind why we make choices, and trust me, it's pretty crazy. By the end of this video, you will have the tools to make better choices and stop getting in your own way. Let's start with the foundation of our decision making process. It's all about cognitive biases and cultural influences. You know how sometimes you feel like your brain is playing tricks on you? We've got these things called cognitive biases, and they are like little glitches in our mental software. They can seriously mess with our choices, especially when it comes to content creation and entrepreneurship. Let's talk about a few of these biases that might be sabotaging your success right now. First up, we've got confirmation bias. This is when you only pay attention to information that supports what you already believe. As a content creator, this can be dangerous. You might ignore negative feedback or overlook important trends because they don't fit your existing ideas. Then there is the sunk cost fallacy. Ever spend way too much time on a video or project even though it's not working out? That's the sunk cost fallacy in action. You keep investing time and energy because you've already put so much into it. But sometimes it's better to cut your losses and move on. Another big one is the optimism bias. This is when you think you are less likely to experience negative events than other people. Don't get me wrong, optimism is great, but unrealistic expectations can lead to the disappointment and poor decision making. But these biases aren't just personal quirks, they are shaped by our culture too. The way we make decisions and how we feel about them can be totally different depending on where we are from. In individualistic cultures, like many Western countries, people tend to focus on personal goals and achievements. They are more likely to regret things they didn't do, for example not starting that YouTube channel sooner. On the flip side, collectivist cultures, which are more common in Asian countries, put more emphasis in group harmony. People from these cultures might regret decisions that went against family expectations or societal norms. I've experienced this cultural influence firsthand. A few months ago, I was thinking about quitting my stable job to focus on YouTube full-time. In my home country of Slovakia, the idea of giving up a real job for something as uncertain as content creation was pretty much unheard of. The pressure to stick with the traditional career path was intense. I remember sitting at my parents' kitchen table trying to explain my plans. My mom looked at me like I had just said I wanted to become a professional clown. She kept asking, "But what about your future? What will people think?" It was clear that her concerns weren't just about my financial stability, but also about how my choice would reflect on our family. I let those cultural expectations hold my back. I tried to balance my day job with creating content on the side, but it was too exhausting. I was constantly torn between what I wanted to do and what I felt I should do. It took a lot of soul searching and some tough conversations to finally make the leap. Looking back, I can see how my cultural background influenced that decision-making process. If I had grew up in a place where entrepreneurship and creative careers were more celebrated, I might have made the switch sooner. But understanding that cultural influence helped me navigate the decision more consciously. This stuff matters because when you are aware of these biases and culture influences, you can start to recognize them in action. You can catch yourself when you are falling into these mental traps and make more intentional choices. Alright, we've talked about biases and culture, but there is another huge piece of the decision-making puzzle we need to tackle: emotions and stress. You know that feeling when you are about to hit publish on a video and your heart starts racing? Or when you are trying to decide on a new content strategy and your mind goes blank? That's your emotions and stress messing with your decision-making process. Here's the thing, our brains aren't just logical machines. They are deeply influenced by how we feel. And at the center of this emotional decision-making is a part of your brain called the orbitofrontal cortex. It's like the mediator between your thoughts and feeling. When you are stressed or emotional, this part of your brain goes into overdrive. It starts mixing up your rational thinking with all these intense feelings, and suddenly making a simple decision feels like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube while riding a unicycle. But it gets even crazier. There is this thing called anticipated regret. It's when you make choices based on how you think you will feel about the outcome later, and it can make you do some pretty weird things. Sometimes anticipated regret makes you super cautious. You may not start that YouTube channel because you are afraid you will regret wasting your time if it doesn't work out. But other times it can make you take big risks, like quitting your job to go all in on content creation because you are scared you will regret not trying. And here is the statistic that will blow your mind. Studies show that the most common sources of regret are education, career, and romance. Sounds familiar? For us content creators and entrepreneurs, those first two hit really close to home. How many times have you hesitated to learn a new skill because you weren't sure it was worth the effort? Or stayed in a job you hated because you were afraid of the uncertainty of freelancing or starting your own business? I've been there too. When I first started my channel, I was working a full-time job. Every day I would come home exhausted, knowing I should be creating content. But the stress of balancing both worlds made decision making nearly impossible. Should I quit my job? Should I give up YouTube? The emotional toll was huge. But now some good news. Understanding how your emotions affect your choices is a game changer. Once you recognize what's happening, you can start to make better decisions even when you are stressed or emotional. Try this. Next time you are facing a tough choice, take a step back. Ask yourself, am I making this decision based on a fact, or am I letting my emotions take the wheel? Just being aware of your emotional state can help you make clear choices. And remember, it's okay to feel stressed or emotional about big decisions. That's normal. The key is not letting those feelings completely override your logical thinking. Now you may say, great Christian, but how do I actually do that? Don't worry. We are getting there. Understanding this emotional layer is just one part of the puzzle. We have still got more to uncover. Alright, we talk about how our brain works when we are making decisions, but now let's dive into something that might surprise you. It turns out that not doing anything can actually be worse than making a mistake. Research shows that people tend to feel more regret for opportunities they didn't take compared to the ones they did, even if things didn't work out perfectly. It's like our brains are wired to torture us with what ifs when we don't take action. How many times have you thought about starting a YouTube channel but kept putting it off? Or maybe you had a great idea for a video series but never got around to make it? Those missed opportunities can haunt you way more than a video that flopped. I remember when I first started thinking about making YouTube videos, I spent months just planning and researching, telling myself I need to learn more before I could start. But you know what? All that inaction just led to more stress and regret. One day I finally decided to just go for it. I made my first video and yeah, it wasn't great. But here's the crazy part. I felt relieved. Even though the video wasn't perfect, I was happier knowing I had taken action than I ever was when I was just thinking about it. Now, there are some differences in how men and women experience regret, especially when it comes to content creation and entrepreneurship. Studies show that women tend to regret career-related inaction more than men do. They are more likely to wish they had pursued certain opportunities or taken more risks in their professional lives. For us content creators, this is huge. It means that if you are a woman in this field, you might be more prone to beating yourself up over videos you didn't make or collaborations you didn't pursue. But boys, don't think you are off the hook. We all deal with this stuff, just in slightly different ways. Let me share a personal story that really drives this home. A few years back, I had the chance to collaborate with much big content creator. They reached out to me saying they liked my content and wanted to work together on a project. It was a huge opportunity, but I was scared. I kept thinking, what if I'm not good enough? What if I mess it up? So what did I do? Nothing. I procrastinated, made excuses, and eventually the opportunity passed me by. And let me tell you, that regret stuck with me for a long time. Every time I saw that creator's channel growing, I couldn't help but think that could have been me. But that experience taught me a valuable lesson. Taking action, even if it's scary, is actually better than doing nothing at all. Sure, there is a chance things might not work out perfectly, but at least you will know you tried. And trust me, that feeling is way better than wondering what if for a couple of years. Now, I'm not saying you should just jump into every opportunity without thinking. Sometimes holding back is the right move, but the key is to make the decision consciously, not out of fear or procrastination. So how do you actually figure out when to take action and when to hold back? It's not always easy, but here are a few things I've learned. First, ask yourself why you are hesitating. Is it because you genuinely need more time to prepare, or are you just scared? Be honest with yourself. Second, think about the worst case scenario. Often it's not as bad as you think. Even if a video flops or collaboration doesn't work out, you will learn something from the experience. Lastly, consider the long-term consequences. Will you regret not taking this opportunity a year from now, 5 years from now? Sometimes looking at the bigger picture can help you make better decisions. Alright, let's talk about something that might seem counterintuitive at first. You know how we always think more options are better? Well, when it comes to decision making, that's not always true. In fact, having too many choices can actually make us more likely to regret our decisions. It's called the paradox of choice. And it's a real problem for us content creators. When you are planning your next video, how many ideas do you come up with? 5, 10, maybe even more? And how often do you find yourself stuck, unable to decide which one to go with? That's the paradox of choice in action. Let me give you a real-world example. A few months ago, I was trying to decide on a new camera for my YouTube setup. I spent weeks researching different models, comparing specs, and reading reviews. I had so many options, and each one seemed better than the last in some way. I kept thinking, if I just do a little more research, I'll find the perfect camera. But here's the thing, I was so overwhelmed by all the choices that I ended up not buying anything for months. And during that time, I missed out on creating content with better video quality. The abundance of options actually paralyzed me and led to inaction. There is where decision justification theory comes into play. It's a fancy term for a simple idea. When we make a decision, we go through 2 stages. First, we evaluate the outcome. Then we either blame or pat ourselves on the back for the choice we made. The more options we have, the more likely we are to second guess our choice and blame ourselves if things don't turn out perfectly. Maybe I should have gone with that other camera model, or I bet that other video idea would have gotten more views. Sounds familiar? So how to deal with this? How do we make decisions when we are faced with so many choices, especially in the world of content creation where options seem endless? First, try to really limit your choices. When you are brainstorming video ideas, don't aim for a list of 20. Narrow it down to your top 3 or 5. This makes the decision process more manageable and reduces the chance of regret later. Second, set clear criteria for your decision. If you are choosing the video topic, decide what's most important to you. Is it view potential, personal interest, audience demand? Having clear priorities makes it easier to evaluate your option. Third, give yourself a deadline. Don't let yourself get stuck in research mode forever. Set the time limit for making your decision and stick to it. Remember, taking action is often better than endless deliberation. Lastly, practice being content with good enough. Perfectionism is a trap, especially for us creators. Sometimes just a good video that's actually published is better than a perfect video that never sees the light of day. I have started applying these strategies in my own content creation process, and let me tell you, it made a huge difference. I'm spending less time agonizing over decisions and more time actually creating content. And you know what? My audience doesn't seem to notice the difference. Remember, the goal isn't to make perfect decisions every time. That's impossible. The goal is to make good decisions consistently and learn from the process. Every choice you make, whether it turns out great or not so great, is a chance to learn and improve. Alright, let's talk about something that might just change the way you look at your past decisions. It's called counterfactual thinking, and it's basically our brain's way of playing what if with our choices. You know those moments when you are laying in a bed thinking about all the things you could have done differently. That's the counterfactual thinking in action. Now, this isn't just some random mental exercise. It actually plays a huge role in how we process regret, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. Think about it. How many times have you posted a video and then spent hours imagining how it could have been better? Or maybe you turned down a collaboration opportunity and can't stop wondering what might have happened if you said yes to it. How do we actually use this counterfactual thinking to our advantage without letting it drag us down? Well, it's all about perspective. Instead of using it to beat yourself up over past choices, try using it as a learning tool. Let's say you made a video that didn't perform as well as you hoped. Instead of just thinking, I should have done X differently, try asking yourself, what can I learn from this for my next video? This shifts your focus from regret to growth. Another technique is to practice what psychologists call cognitive reframing. It's a fancy term for looking at your decisions from a different angle. Instead of dwelling on what I might have missed, I started thinking about how that decision actually gave me more time to improve my content and build my confidence. By the time the next opportunity came around, I was much more prepared. Now, I'm not saying you should ignore your mistakes or pretend every decision you have made was perfect. That's not realistic or helpful. The key is to find a balance between learning from your past and not getting stuck there. Here's the trick I started using. Whenever I catch myself in a spiral of what ifs, I stop and ask 3 questions. First one, what can I learn from this decision? Second one, how can I apply that lesson to my future choices? And the third one, what's one positive thing that came from my choice I made? This helps me shift from regret to reflection and from dwelling to doing. It's not always easy, but it gets better with practice. Remember the last video about attention? Practice makes perfection. Every content creator and entrepreneur you admire has made decisions they regret. The difference is now how they process those decisions and move forward. They don't let the what ifs paralyze them. Instead, they use them as fuel to make better choices in the future. So next time you find yourself stuck in a loop of counterfactual thinking, try to reframe it. Instead of I should have done this, try next time I'll try this. It's a small change in wording, but it can make a big difference in how you feel and how you act. And here is something to keep in mind. Sometimes the decisions we regret the most end up leading us to unexpected opportunities. That conference I missed, it pushed me to seek out other networking opportunities, led to some amazing collaborations I may never have found otherwise. Alright, we've covered a lot of ground, from cognitive biases to the paradox of choice, but now it's time to put it all together and build your ultimate decision-making toolkit. Trust me, this is where things get really exciting. Let's start by recap the key building blocks we've discussed. First, we've talked about cognitive biases and cultural influences. Remember how confirmation bias can make you ignore important feedback, or how your cultural background might be influencing your career choices? That's the foundation of our decision-making process. Then we dove into the emotional layer. We learned how stress and emotions can hijack our rational thinking, and how anticipated regret can push us towards or away from certain choices. Think about all those times you hesitated to start a new project because you were afraid it might not work out. We also explored the action-inaction dilemma. Remember how not taking action can sometimes lead to more regret than making a mistake? That's the game changer for us content creators and entrepreneurs. And let's not forget about the paradox of choice. Too many options can actually make decision-making harder and increase the likelihood of regret. It's why sometimes having fewer video ideas to choose from can actually be better. We talked about the power of perspective and how counterfactual thinking can either trap us in a regret or help us learn how to grow. Let's take all this knowledge and turn it into practical strategies you can use every day. I'm going to give you some cognitive behavior techniques that will help you manage regret and make better decisions. First up, we've got the decision journal. This is a simple but powerful tool. Every time you make a significant decision, write down what choice you made, why you made it, and how you feel about it. Then set a reminder to review this entry in a month or two. It forces you to think through your decisions more carefully, and it gives you a chance to learn from your choices over time. Next, try the 10-10-10 rule. When you are facing a tough decision, ask yourself, how will I feel about this choice 10 minutes from now, 10 months from now, 10 years from now? This helps you step back from the immediate emotional impact and consider the long-term consequences of your choices. Here's another technique I love, the regret test. Before making a decision, imagine yourself in the future having chosen each option. Which scenario would you regret more? This can help you identify what's truly important to you and make choices aligned with your values. Now, let's talk about how to apply these concepts specifically to content creation and entrepreneurship. When you are deciding on a new video topic or business strategy, start by limiting your options. Instead of brainstorming endlessly, pick your top 3 ideas and focus on those. This reduces decision fatigue and makes it easier to move forward. Before launching a new project, do a quick bias check. Are you ignoring negative feedback because of confirmation bias? Are you sticking with the failing strategy because of the sunk cost fallacy? Just being aware of these biases can help you make more rational decisions. And here is the big one. Embrace imperfect action. Remember, not making a decision is often worse than making an imperfect one. So if you are on the fence about starting that YouTube channel or launching that product, what's the worst that could happen if I just go for it? Often the potential benefits outweigh the risk. Lastly, practice reframing your past decisions. Instead of dwelling on what could have been, focus on what you have learned. Every failure is just data for your next success. Alright, let's get real for a second. Perfect decisions, they don't exist. And you know what? That's totally okay. We are all just trying our best with the information we have. The key is to use what you have learned to make smarter choices and grow from your mistakes. Here's the deal. You've got the power now. You understand how your brain works, how emotions mess with your choices, and why sometimes doing nothing is worse than messing up. Use that knowledge. Make decisions that push you forward, even if they are not perfect. So, what's the one thing you've been putting off? Starting a YouTube channel? Quitting your job? Whatever it is, share it in the comments. Let's support each other in taking that next step. Remember, imperfect action beats perfect inaction every time. If you found this video interesting, you can watch this one, and I promise you, you will learn something new again. I was your host, Christian. You've been you, bye-bye. Don't forget to subscribe this channel. We are trying to get 100,000 subscribers before the end of this year.